Ignite your curiosity with Austin Next. We're watching Austin transform from a thriving ecosystem into a global superstar. With our host, Jason Scharf, we aspire to better comprehend the true nature of innovation. Together, we will uncover what makes a successful ecosystem and navigate the technologies shaping our future. Now let's dive into what's next.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Austin Private Wealth, a registered investment advisor focused on fee-only financial planning and investment management. Their mission is to serve affluent clients with personalized financial advice, fostering a trusted relationship that will endure for generations to come. Austin Private Wealth is not just about managing wealth. They're about inspiring you to embrace a future filled with possibilities and helping you architect enduring legacies. Their core values of integrity, service, caring, excellence, and growth are at the heart of everything they do. Connect with them today at austinprivatewealth.com.
Austin Private Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Austin Private Wealth and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Austin Private Wealth unless a client service agreement is in place. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.
Austin is adapting to and building the future in real time. I'm Michael Scharf. We are exploring and driving our transformation into the next innovation powerhouse.
I'm Jason Scharf. I'm a bioresearcher at UT to the assembly line worker at Tesla, from the musician on 6th Street to the coder at Dell. And with the founders, funders, and early employees at the next great startup, we are all Austin Next.
Regardless of your politics, there's no denying that the U.S. and perhaps the world's economies are headed for a rough patch. Economies that grow quickly can be more brittle and swing from good to bad more than a larger, more stable region. Given the growth of the Austin Central Texas area over the past few years, the question is, how resilient is the Austin economy, and are we ready for what comes next? Today, to answer the question, we're joined by Roland Pena, Senior VP, Global Technology and Innovation with Opportunity Austin and the Austin Chamber of Commerce. His responsibilities include strategic outreach, program development of global initiatives and collaborations that support the continued investments, growth, and success of entrepreneurship and innovation in the Austin region. Roland's 30-plus year track record in economic development is replete with successes and the development of ongoing project pipelines that achieve year-over-year growth. Managing relationships, developing initiatives, and successfully guiding businesses through the design and launch of new products, services, and investment opportunities. Roland serves as a member of both the state and national trade organizations, the Texas Economic Development Council, and the International Economic Development Council. Most recently, Roland and his team developed and launched a startup funding database tracking funding for early-stage companies in the Austin area. This will be a great resource for everyone looking to understand what's next Austin. Roland, welcome to the Austin Next podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. Jason?
We want to start at the national level, and if this is a normal economic cycle, I think everybody kind of knows what's going to happen. A couple of quarters of negative GDP, and then growth begins to resume, and altogether it's, a year or 16 months of issues. Alternatively, this kind of looks like the accumulation of a bunch of unique things. We're coming out of COVID, the labor force is down, and I'm glad I'm not an economist because I don't know what's next. So when you look at the Austin regional data, what's it tell us?
Michael, so I am not an economist, but I tend to focus on jobs. That's where we're spending a lot of our time. Obviously, the economy division of the Austin Chamber does focus on creation of jobs, attraction of talent. So let's start there. And I've put up a slide. If you look at this slide, you can see that Austin has 70,000, almost 71,000 more jobs than it did a year ago, 12 months, ending the month of July, making it the 7th best performing among the top 50 metros. And I think that's important.
And for our listeners, we'll put all of the links to all of these slides in the show notes.
Okay, excellent. Notice the trajectory, because that's going to be important as we go all the way to 2008. You can see the upward trajectory. You'll see the downturn at 2020, obviously, COVID. And you obviously know the prior years when we took dips, the minor recessions. But notice they're minor. They 1 to 2 years, maybe 1.5 years max as you look at that. The other thing that's important is that Austin made up all of 2020's pandemic-related job losses by May of 2021. And the metro ranks first for job growth since February of 2020.
Now, if you look at that graph, and when our listeners look at that graph, if you just erase the reaction to COVID, it looks like it just continued the same slope, the same rate of increase. It's like by the beginning of the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, nothing happened. Those of us that lived through all this, we know lots of things happened, but it looks like a smooth line, which I kind of find amazing. How are we driving such a consistent rate of growth in jobs?
I will say that since 2004, we embarked on a strategic plan. And if you remember the early 2000s, everyone went through the dot-com bust. We lost somewhere around 45,000 jobs. Hence the creation of Opportunity Austin. Opportunity Austin is the regional economic development initiative here in Austin. It took the private sector who collaborated, brought everybody together and said, we need to diversify. That is what you're seeing today. That's what makes us much more successful. If I can use that illustration, the metro ranks first for job growth since February of 2020.
Now, if you look at that graph, and when our listeners look at that graph, if you just erase the reaction to COVID, it looks like it just continued the same slope, the same rate of increase. It's like by the beginning of the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, nothing happened. Those of us that lived through all this, we know lots of things happened, but it looks like a smooth line, which I kind of find amazing. How are we driving such a consistent rate of growth in jobs?
I will say that since 2004, we embarked on a strategic plan. And if you remember the early 2000s, everyone went through the dot-com bust. We lost somewhere around 45,000 jobs. Hence the creation of Opportunity Austin. Opportunity Austin is the regional economic development initiative here in Austin. It took the private sector who collaborated, brought everybody together and said, we need to diversify. That is what you're seeing today. That's what makes us much more successful. If I can use that illustration, we tend to say that we're always last into a recession and first out. So we're a check mark. And if you look at that, that's almost a check mark. Let me show you another slide, if that's okay. This basically shows you that Austin is the best performing metro in the country with 9.1% change. That means there was a significant number of jobs, and only 33 other top 50 metros have regained their pre-pandemic levels. But we lead all major metros in terms of the number of jobs percentage-wise created.
Do see here that 3 of the top 5 are Austin, Dallas, and Fort Worth. So there is a bit of a connection there.
That's right. That's right. Obviously, Texas, with 5 of the fastest growing, most populous cities in the country, is doing well. And the other thing is, and if you probably already know it and have heard it, we have the Texas Triangle, right? So Austin resides at the center of that Texas Triangle. We have a lot of, in fact, something like 51.3% of those migrating to Austin come from elsewhere Texas. And I tend to think it's the big portion is from the Texas Triangle, those other metros who are moving here because of opportunity and the jobs that we're helping to create.
Yeah, the Texas Triangle, for those that missed our episode, is Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. So in that case, we're already being mixed with the San Antonio to create the mega region, which is great. but it really shows up in terms of this kind of growth. I want to get back to what you mentioned just a minute ago with the formation of Opportunity Austin, the Economic Development Council. This has been tried in a whole bunch of areas. And the biggest issue that I've seen is that very, very rarely can you get a group of civic leaders to come into a room to check their egos, their politics, and their individual agendas at the door. And just like you said, hey, the dot-com boom hit Austin hard. We lost 45,000 jobs. What are we, everybody around the table and everybody that they represented, going to do to come up with a better plan? How does something like that happen here in Austin? As fractious as I've seen this city in the last almost 2 years that we've been here, I'm just trying hard to imagine that.
It's that the magic of the phrase, keep Austin weird. So, and most people think that has a negative connotation, but I will point to, I think Austin's authentic. We're genuine, we're collaborative. And when something as significant as a downturn in the economy and you're losing jobs, something of that significant happens, I think we rally together. And it's very impressive. You are correct. To take 5 counties, 17 municipalities, 25 communities, and bring them together, bring these economic development organizations and bring the private sector together in pursuit of diversifying the economy, in pursuit of prosperity for not only the companies that we recruit, but the businesses and companies that exist to help them continue to expand, be sustainable, and grow, and also for the people that we employ.
We talk about this happened in 2004, post the dot-com, and I've seen in other regions, the burning platform does kick people to kind of come together, right? You have those people kind of come together, and many times organizations are formed from them. One of the things that I've seen post is, okay, you've got this new organization, we're solving, or we have a plan moving forward. The people who were the drivers behind the, hey, we've got a moment here that we have to get together, go off, do other things, retire, whatever those be, and you have the kind of the organizational drift, right? Then those kind of new people come in, and it's not that same kind of either collaborative nature or just this, many times some people take over nonprofits. It's very personal, like this is my next step. I'm going to do those kinds of things, right? And there's no problem with that. How have we seen that, once the burning platform was over? Now, it's an interesting point because the graph you had went back to 2008, so I didn't see kind of how it shifted through them. But okay, 2004, things kind of got together. Then we obviously had the Great Recession. But the thing was, it looked about like 2010, you had just basically that straight line up, right? So something has maintained through at least the two things. And do you see, one is it all the players are still involved? My sense is probably not. There's been some shift. And two, have we seen either different organizations or have organizations had more of a continuous North Star that allowed them to kind of keep the egos in check going forward?
So let me outline perhaps or create a visual, right? So we have Opportunity Austin that was created, and it's funded by some 325 or 340 what we call investors. These are the civic most influential, if you will. You want to call it that?
Wait. Hold on just a second. Opportunity Austin is privately funded?
Correct.
Okay, because in my experience in that other state, every time you had an EDC, it was like TOT taxes or some other tax base that funded it. Okay.
So it's private sector funded. Some of the municipalities, including the city of Austin, participate. But it was built in that their participation would be minimal because they wanted it to be private sector driven. So they're a participant, they're involved, they're investors, but their participation is a lower amount. However, it is a private nonprofit corporation, has no employees, and they contract with the Austin Chamber and their staff to execute the plan. It's a 5-year plan, and every 2.5 years they do a mid-course review and they determine what needs to change, how do we pivot, what needs to be revised. And it's been operating that way since 2004. This year, we're on our fourth year, guess the fourth plan. So next year we'll end this 5-year plan, and we've already issued an RFP this year for the next strategic plan. And we're excited about it because there's so much that's been happening. And I will say that as a result of the effort, and as a result of being able to keep the investors together, keeping the entire region together, we're servicing the fruit of that labor. And so it's been nonstop. I mean, it's during a potential, if you want to call it a dip in the economy, if you want to call it a recession, it's been nonstop for us. We continue to market, we continue to be active, we continue to engage consultants, site selectors, we call on companies, we do our own research, but it's nonstop. And I think that's important. What tends to happen during a recession, economic development, you probably know this, Mike, but what tends to happen with economic development organizations is when a recession hits, it's when they determine, do we still have the funding? So having my background has been in economic development for many, many years. And at one point I worked for a utility company, and we had a large staff. And when recession came, we were eliminating staff and some of those services, which did not make any sense at the time. But that tends to happen. It hasn't happened here in the Austin Metro. I will also say this. We get consultants from all over the country, and now, most recent, from all over the world, who are studying Austin, who want to know, what is it? What is the secret sauce? Why are you guys so successful? And they come here. It is crazy. They come here, and we've had them in this room from all competitors, right? Because we're competing against them. And they come here and they want to learn what makes you guys so successful. And I'll say it's nonstop. We continue operating under this strategic plan. We have a mission to accomplish, and we're committed to that.
I want to turn down the term plan here and understand a little bit more of what you guys have in it, because one of the things that I've seen in ecosystems is the more highly top-down driven they try to be, the less successful they are. When you look at, some cities that have tried to, hey, we're going to do this gigantic redevelopment and create the new skyline, and here's going to be, a Ferris wheel, this, or that, et cetera. And after, 20 years, it's not there, right? Versus, as we're recording this, the water line was just officially named. We have, I like to point to, the Google Tower is a great example of, like, nobody told them to make a new addition and interesting to the skyline. They wanted to, right? So one of the things it seems to be here is that a lot is enabled to grow, right? Like, go do your thing, and that creates interesting opportunities. So when you say the strategic plan, like, what is in the plan? What is the basis to try to do that? Still allow that freedom for the ecosystem to do its thing.
Yeah. So one of it is diversification. So we made a decision and had an initial amount of targeted industries, right? And so that's in there, and that continues to evolve. And I don't have it here, and I could pull it up. Let me pull this up for you if it's okay. This pie chart will show you some of the projects that we're working on right now. These, what we hot and active projects, are projects that are basically those projects that have shortlisted Austin. They're on the ground. They're making site visits. They're about to make a decision within 6 to 18 months. These are our hot projects, month over month. But if you look at the type of project and see the diversification, who would have thought that we would have had defense? Who would have thought that we would have had automotive?
So we're looking at 267 active projects, from everything from manufacturing, clean tech, automotive, semiconductor, software, life science, food and beverage, finance, defense, data center, and who knows what kind of fun stuff's sitting in that other category.
Exactly. R&D is what we put in the other category. But here's the thing. 2004, I don't think those targeted industries were even imagined, even food and beverage.
And here's the most amazing part, because coming from the outside, we've looked at Austin, because this is now the town that we've adopted as ours. This is our home. And through this process, through doing the podcast, we've come up with a series of what we called Austin superpowers. Now, several of them are cultural, so we kind of understand the people had something to do with it. But one of them is our diversification. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing because what you're showing us here, and we'll put this up for the listeners because you'll be amazed. What you're showing us is that this is intentional. And that intention is now, 18 years later, after the development of Opportunity Austin, still bearing fruit, and bearing fruit in an amazing way. And this also supports the other theory that we've talked about a lot, that unlike other cities and metros and states, Austin is purposefully driving to keep a middle class. Because of these areas here in manufacturing, in clean tech, in automotive, in food and beverage and finance, there are always good quality middle class jobs. You know, I'm sure that part of that other is artificial intelligence, machine learning, and things that take PhDs with postdoc work to even begin to understand. And I'm looking at this and going, everything here supports the maintenance of a middle class. And that's the part that makes Austin so incredible compared to the largest metros in the country. So this is eye-opening and rather amazing.
I'm glad you have that reaction. My internal reaction is sort of a sense of pride. I mean, remember what I told you. So our mission was opportunity, creation of jobs, right? Alleviating or eliminating poverty. And so when we look at what we've done in terms of improving quality of life, or what Opportunity Austin has done, better said, you can see that our salary ranges have increased. So even for the middle skill. And so you look at that and you think, wow, we played a role in that, right? We played a role. We brought significant industry that increased those salaries, that provided for these families and those that didn't have an opportunity. I mean, we have employers that are tapping the high schools, right? Tesla is one, BAE is another. We have others that are tapping the high schools and hiring directly out of high school and making decent salaries. It's amazing. So I take a lot of pride in what Opportunity Austin has been able to accomplish. And I'll mention just another initiative that has received White House recognition. It's a different division in the chamber, and they deal with talent and education. One of the metrics that they have is 70% of all graduating high school students must go on to a four-year institution and seek a degree. That's a metric. The remaining 30%, we want them to secure a certificate or a credential to put them on a career path to improve the quality of life, maybe land with an employer that'll pay tuition and secure a four-year degree. That is a White House recognized program that we have, and for a long time had met that metric or close to that metric beyond any other metro in the state. So I take a lot of pride. And here's the other cool piece of that is that requires staff. A lot of our staff will dedicate weekends, evenings to work with parents, superintendents, counselors to help the students fill out their FAFSA, because that's really the first step, right? You've got to fill out the FAFSA. You fill out the FAFSA, then you secure the federal dollars, and that makes dollars available for scholarships and so forth, right? You have to do that. I went
through that. I know those forms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to sit there and help them fill out the FAFSA, help them understand what they're doing. What other chamber in the country is doing that? Who's working with this entire school districts in the entire metro to do that? It's amazing, but all of us give time for that purpose. But and there's other pieces in the strategic plan. One of them is the area that I'm focused on, right? So several years ago, I guess it was around perhaps 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago, they determined that, hey, we were losing our startups. They were going elsewhere. There wasn't enough capital. There wasn't enough investors here. And so that became an initiative. Let's endeavor on programming for startups. Let's secure more capital. Let's build a partnership with South by Southwest. Let's create this entire program for startups. And we've been successful. You mentioned earlier another city and another state. Last year, 2021, you probably already know this, PitchBook ranked Austin as number 7 in the country for VC and private equity deal flow, and number 10 in the country for VC deal flow. That's Austin, a smaller metro than the East and West Coast, right? But that tells me, and in addition to some of the data that we're seeing on the new platform, we're seeing that Austin, we have achieved or are achieving the work that we've been giving to the startup ecosystem. So we've been trying to attract investors where we travel abroad in search of capital, and it's all seems to be playing out. It seems to be we're creating this support and advocacy and infrastructure, as you saw by the platform. No other metro in the country has a platform that has captured all of these strategic assets for a startup ecosystem except Austin.
And a great platform it is. So you guys are justifiably proud of it.
Oh, I want to take the flip side for a moment. I love the sector diversification. I think it is, I agree, it's a big power that we have, especially with the opportunities that it brings in terms of mixing knowledge, talent from these different industries. One of the challenges that ends up happening is the ability for very siloed industries. My day job is all in life science, right? And so I stick mostly with that space and don't necessarily talk with the food and beverage or the semiconductor people, right? How do we see, Austin trying to drive those, we like to call them creative collisions, especially as we have the growing number of industries, the growing geography? What do you see kind of, whether it's the chamber's role or just the culture, how do we drive that?
I think that's everybody's role. Yesterday, you may have been involved, that we had the Queen of Netherlands here visiting, and I was at an event there and they had a panel, and it was interesting. Someone said, we need to do more to bring this ecosystem together. We're growing, right? We're growing. And what I hear the most from people, and I get asked this by prospects that we're courting, right? And people that had just moved here, and they always say, well, aren't you concerned that you're going to lose the culture? Aren't you concerned that the people moving here are going to change the culture, or things won't be the same and there'll be a disconnect, that type of thing? We've been growing for 18, 20 years and the culture has not changed. We continue to be collaborative, but I think that needs to continue to happen. And here's, this week we had, I was at another event besides that one, and it was a startup that I helped to recruit, and obviously we're always trying to get them engaged. So there's many ways to get engaged, right? We have a new Austin Venture Association that you interviewed, right? I sit on their board. Yes, CS Freeland. And they're very proactive. They want to get involved. They've created a new association. And I see that. I think that is what Austin is all about. We want to create collaboration. We want to intermingle. Prior to COVID, there were meetups from a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday meetups, right? Almost every tech company had meetups, and it was a great way to spot talent, right? You could attract talent, right? You were hosting something at your office, and you could attract talent from elsewhere. But it was a good way to network and socialize and that type of thing. But during COVID, that went online. So those meetups went online. My point is that hasn't stopped. And I think that has to continue. We need to do that, continue that, and do more of that. I see a lot of value. That's where the collision takes place. That's where innovation takes place. That's where creativity takes place. And I think you asked the question, or maybe it came up earlier, but